is Monica Gleberman, and you're listening to Silence on Set podcast. On today's podcast, we're talking to the cast of The Marvelous Miss Maisel for its 5th and final season. This season, Midge finds herself closer than ever to the success she's dreamed of, only to discover that closer than ever is still so very far away. So to start us off, here's Reid Scott and Jason Ralph. I want to congratulate you on Gordon and everything that you did with him. So I want to start with you really quickly. What was that like, seeing the arc of kind of Gordon, learning a little more about his background, and then ultimately kind of how he slowly shifts and changes a little bit of his mentality, especially towards women, given the time period over the course of the season?
Anytime you get to play a character that has a real journey to go on, that's the kind of character that I'm always attracted to. And Amy and Dan, they do that with every single character in the show. Everyone is so fleshed out and grounded and, you know, comedic in all the right ways, but very real. And it was so fun to play a character who's not just one-dimensional. The more you get to know him, you realize that of course, like any human being, there's layers to him. But he was such a fun guy to explore episode to episode. And there was always, you know, such a wonderful surprise. You get the script the day before the table read, and that was the day that you got to learn a little bit more about the guy that you're playing. And then to get to go to work with this, you know, phenomenal crew and cast and really get to explore that space. It keeps you on your toes for sure, but it was so much fun.
You did such a good job because you totally disappeared. Like, I forgot it was you like halfway through. So you did such a great job.
Thank you.
I felt the same way when he came out that first time.
Did you?
As Gordon Ford, like doing the Gordon Ford show, I was just like, we're just watching a late night show. Like, this is just incredible. Like, he's a natural.
Thank you.
We got to get him a late night show.
So let's put that out there. We'll have to tag the shows.
I'm going to social media this.
We'll do 3 episodes a season.
Yeah.
Jason, oh my gosh, Mike, I love him so much. He's so cute and just so stressed, and I just feel so like my heart just goes to him so much. I loved every scene that you have with Alex, you and Susie. I'm like, well, I should say Mike and Susie are so funny together and cute. So what was it like for you playing? Because I think, you know, behind the scenes that happens in real life a lot, where like, you know, you have a talent that's running a show and they're not necessarily listening and making the right decisions, and a lot of the stress falls on the producer or someone that's running around or the booker or, you know, whatever the case is, and then everyone's coming to you for everything and wanting stuff from you. So poor Mike. So how did you do it? How did you survive the season, and how does Mike kind of get through all of the things that people are kind of asking him for?
I mean, honestly, it was just so fun to get to play someone just like so tightly wound, and like, you know, he's so like striving, you know, to get to, you know, the place that he wants to be. You know, he's just like this hyper ambitious guy, and because of that, you know, I think he's like taking on the more responsibilities than he should be, you know. I think to kind of, you know, he's maybe creating the hill that he's like, you know, gonna climb. So I think he like enjoys that part of the job and getting to be good at it, and he knows he's good at it. He knows he's the best at it, and like how infuriating it is for someone to be where he wants to be and just to be so like awful at their job, you know, knowing that he can be better. And it's like, I don't know, it was just like so fun to get to play someone like that. And then kind of like the journey of the piece, I think Amy and Dan did such like a wonderful job creating kind of the arc of this guy, where we get to kind of see him evolve, and, you know, like what happens to a person when they're striving so hard to get somewhere and they finally kind of arrive. And, you know, I think for Mike, it's like a little bit of like a dog chasing a car, you know, like he gets there and I think he doesn't know exactly what to do with it. And then we get this little glimpse of like the future, you know, we kind of see how he sort of like settles into that power, and how he and Susie's dynamic, you know, shifts and changes over time. And, you know, I kind of like, in some ways they're like mirrors to each other, and they have so much in common, and I think so much respect for each other, which is probably why they hate each other so much, because I think there's a lot of self-loathing, you know.
Definitely. Yeah.
That hill to get to that second floor is what he tries to build himself to, right?
Exactly.
I want to ask both of you, so that last episode, I feel like both your characters have monumental moments of change, and it's like the first time that Gordon kind of like sits down and finds a woman funny, and it's okay to have a woman on his show, and then has a whole scene there. And then with Mike, I love, by the way, there's one scene before that where every single decision that, you kind of disagree with, I love when you whisper in the back, you're like, I'll do it. And I love that scene, by the way. I just had to throw that in there. But that's the same thing for him, where they're 4 minutes short and he's yelling and he's going, give it to her. Like, let her do her thing. And he's being supportive too. So both of them in that moment make a legend. A legend happens in that moment. So what was that like for the two of you filming that scene? Because you guys kind of like spark what we see, kind of everything beforehand sparks because of that moment.
Well, I think they're like old boys club a little bit, and I think so much of that is like people earning their stripes, and I think they're particularly hard on women, and especially Midge. And it was like very cool to, Amy and Dan like wrote this kind of like really like lovely journey where I think they both innately recognize that she's worthy of this, and, choose to give her the leap, to like give her the benefit of the doubt, kind of. I thought that was just like really kind of cool and unique, and unlike a lot of like actual like men of that era. They definitely, I think, surpass like pretty far like how a lot of men behaved in that era.
Yeah, I think, Gordon, his fascination with Midge, because that's really kind of what it is. She's a nut that he can't quite crack, first romantically. And then I think he's just fascinated with how her mind works and how she's a true, she's a chess player like he is. And she's a true adversary. Not that they're ever really adversarial, but I think, this is someone that he can really fence with. And despite all that they go through over the course of the season, in that final moment, when she takes the stage, she takes the mic, and she delivers this incredible set, despite everything they've been through, that's the first time that he actually sees her. Because that's really who she is. That's who she's meant to be. She's that artist. She's that comic. He knows she's funny, but when she sees that she's a true master in the making, that she can work a crowd, she's got this material, she can hold them in the palm of her hand, I think all of a sudden it's like, damn, that's maybe what he always wanted to have. And so the fact that he flips from, I'm going to bury you on live television, to, I'm going to vault you out into the stratosphere, all because of her, not because of him or anything that he's done. It's like you did this. That's a really fun moment to play. It's a big scene, but it's also emotional because it's the last day. We shot that on the last day, which was the only way to shoot that thing, and because you could feel all the emotion bubbling up, and that emotion really helped fuel that day. It's special to be part of something on the last shot of the last day of an iconic series. It was incredible.
I'm also curious too. So I wanted to know from both of you kind of what you're hoping fans take away from the season, or what are some of your fun, memories are, because it's obviously the last season. And then also, where do you see your characters? Because we don't really get to see too much of like the future of both of them. Where would you see them like down the line?
I think Gordon probably dies of a massive coronary from drinking and eating too much, well-marbled steak. Probably like 10 years after that last shot, which is why you don't see him in the future, because he's dead. Because he's dead. But I don't know. I hope the fans, get out of this last season what they've gotten out of every other season, which is, to spend time with these incredible characters, and Amy and Dan's incredible words, how they've really been, crafting something so unique onto television. It's going to be a very satisfying goodbye, I think. I know for me, I couldn't choose just one memory that I'm taking with me, because it's so much greater than the sum of its parts. But I know the caliber of talent that existed on this show from the top down in every single department, every single day, is something that is never, you can't capture that kind of lightning in a bottle. This is something that comes along, once in a lifetime. So I'm very, very, thrilled to have been a part of it.
Jason's like, for me, not really.
The journey continues.
And I thought it was fine, everyone's sure, great, nice, very nice. No, well, I think Mike's like definitely a cockroach kind of human being. Like, I think he'll live forever. Yeah. We see kind of the glimpses.
A nice cockroach. So that makes it sound like you're a bad person. I think Mike's a nice.
cockroach?
Oh, I never thought of cockroaches as being bad.
Unkillable?
Yeah, they're just unkillable. I think of the cockroaches in the old Raid commercials, they're sort of like they're just like dudes doing their thing, they're just like living their lives, like got a family.
Yeah, regular guys.
Yeah, he's just like a regular guy. Cockroach show is so special in so many ways. And I think Reid said it best. I mean, we just get to work with the best artists in the business. And to be surrounded by people doing their best makes you do your best. It's intoxicating and infectious. And that's what I'll miss the most, certainly.
What was the best or like funnest scene that you two had together? I know you guys hate each other, but if you can come up with something.
I don't think they hate each other. I think they have this, they're both ballers. You know what I mean? They expect a lot from each other. And I think as the season progresses, like I said, Mike really becomes a confidant. And he refers to him at one point, like, he assumes this new mantle, this new position. He's like, you ready, partner? A lot of this is falling on you. You ready to run? He looks to Mike. It's like, you're the guy that's going to make it happen. Like, I know that I can just tell you, I need this and you're going to make it happen. So I think there's a lot of respect there. I think Gordon looks to Mike as someone sort of like, you are going to step up and be, my lieutenant on this thing. God, there were so many, fun scenes together. I think the real dressing down scene, though, that was, I don't want to spoil too much, but there's a moment where Mike's feeling himself in his new position of power, and Gordon sort of like, has a lot of fun needling him in front of the entire office space.
But the balcony.
The balcony scene.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. That was a lot of fun.
God, that was just like so embarrassing. I like to describe that like moment as like just sort of like he like wanted power so much and he finally gets it, and then he's like up on his throne and then just like it's like totally undercut and with the rug pulled out from under him, and he's just like the dog chasing in the car and like just doesn't know now what to do with the power. It was like really fun. And then the final episode has like so many great scenes of like I think with what we're talking about, like where the power dynamic begins to shift a little bit and where they become kind of like on equal playing ground, that coming down after that oneer, and it's like trying to get you to get Midge on the show, and then the 4 minutes, it's like it was just like so fun. There's like so many great moments.
Yeah.
If you can describe the show overall or your experience in one word, what would it be?
I mean, iconic comes to mind.
Yeah, iconic. That's a great word. I guess like artistry.
I like both of those.
Okay, yeah, I know it's not great. Wait, okay, marvelous. Okay, it's marvelous. Is that what you want to hear? Fine.
Marvelous. Okay, we'll take that.
Up next is Kevin Pollak and Caroline Aaron. I wanted to get into just, first of all, I love your characters. I think your characters bring some of the funniest laughs on the show. I mean, Moishe, you remind me so much of like my family members. Caroline, you do too. It brings me to home when I watch it. I get emotional. The last season was a mix between crying and laughing. The last episode, I was doing both at the same time. So I wanted to talk to you guys in particular, for you as a married couple on the show. You go through a little bit of an up and down in the final season. So I wanted to know, how is that for you guys playing? Because it was the first time you were really off sync since really the show started. And then how did it feel to kind of find your way back to each other?
I love this story is that Kevin had started watching the season before I did. And his sweetheart was just in the middle of the first episode when we were fighting. And she went, no, they're not going to split up, are they? And it was so great.
She was very upset.
That she was rooting for us. And I think the way it felt was I was more than prepared for us to split up. We didn't know what was going to happen to this couple any more than the audience will as they watch it, because they would give us the scripts as they came up. And so I think I did go up to Dan at one point and say, when we were fighting, and I said, is this it? In the very first episode, he went, no, you will be fine ultimately. This is not lethal.
We were concerned, I remember.
Yeah, it's
as
not
actors
lethal.
Talking to each other saying, what's happening? Why are they doing this to us?
Right, exactly. Is this lethal?
But they're genius at truth and conflict. It's driving the story of, Miriam Maisel, who I have to call Midge. I can't even say Miriam. It feels so weird. They drive her in everyone's character story.
When we came in, I don't remember which episode it was, but when we lose that grandchild together.
Well, that's it. I'm taking back the covers on your side of the bed where we sense you hadn't slept in a little while.
Right. Is
and
that the shared
thing, and you get the booties, and you come in.
Is that shared experience is, who else am I going to share that with?
Yeah.
And that sort of begins the lesson, I think, certainly for my character, which is you can't throw away the best thing that ever happened to you.
But we were very concerned and then very happy.
And by the way, that scene that you're talking about the bedspread, I was crying when she came in. And then I went,
Yes.
that's what a marriage is. Because
That's exactly right.
so people are so ready to like just throw it away. And in that scene, it was like the only person I want to talk to, and I felt like for your character, Caroline, was your husband.
Who else am I going to share
That's all
that?
you needed.
And there were no lines. I mean, that's the other thing in a show that is so verbal, to have such an important moment in a relationship and in a storyline be nonverbal
Yeah.
is also pretty extraordinary. And it told everything. They literally wrote the stage directions of Moishe pulls back the covers,
Yeah.
Shirley crawls in.
Yeah.
And that's all you needed to know.
Yeah, our characters throughout the course of the show were rarely allowed to take a moment.
That's right. We're yackers.
We're firecrackers
Yeah.
from beginning to end. And that's a good point. That scene is very sweet and poignant and very moving. I think it's the end of that episode.
Yeah, I think so. Is that it? And it's sort of, we'd get scripts, they would inform us about where we were going and what we needed to learn in order to move on to the next part of the story. So,
But I'm very happy to hear that you and your husband are relating to these two old people.
Not old. You guys are too good looking to be old, but
yeah,
it
we're
was
cool
very-
old though.
yeah, I'll go with cool older. I like that. No, it was very emotional. And then what I really love too is I love the crazy and the chaos that you guys bring to the show. I mean, you remind me of my family. So like, it's just very exciting for me to watch and I get so much enjoyment from it. But I want to go to the last episode in particular. I love the fact that everybody shows up for Midge, who's going to be on the Gordon, the Late Night with Gordon or Gordon show or whatever. And you're all there in chaos, but like supporting her. And I just thought it was so beautiful because it was two families that just never gave up on the other.
Amy and Dan definitely made a point throughout the course of the series
Yeah.
that these two families, the in-laws,
Yeah.
aspects, would have their struggles. Of course, Abe and Moishe, Shirley and Rose had their moments of trouble, but they always loved their kids so much, and one parent to the other child, not even their own.
Mhm.
That family unit was never going to break up.
I know. And it's so surprising. I mean, as an actor where you're looking at it and you're going, will I be included, in the story? And you go, well, our children aren't married to each other anymore. How much can we belong to this story?
Yeah, we could have been written out
Yeah,
by
we
the
could have
end
been.
of season 1.
Yeah, exactly. And the fact that they wanted to keep this family together is sort of remarkable, and a kind of a lesson for people who don't do this in their own life is that, we took all the best parts of the ways in which these two families have things in common, relate, enjoy each other, and we didn't discard them just because the kids weren't married anymore.
And they didn't discard, the kids didn't discard each other.
Right. That's right.
And it's very Jewish, by the way. So I loved all of it so
Sure,
much.
that was the original title of the show.
Very Jewish.
Very Jewish.
Or Makatuna.
They thought, maybe
Maybe we should change it. So the last episode obviously is extremely emotional. I know that was the last week you guys were filming and all of that, but I wanted to ask you overall, looking back, 5 seasons, I should say. I think it's 7 years. When you look back on it, this is an iconic, legendary show.
I
It
think so.
ended with me crying and laughing at the same time and with me going, oh my God, that was perfect. And then I literally went to one of my friends. I said, I can't tell you anything, but I said, once in a blue moon, a show hits it. And in my career of 25 plus years of doing this, I've said that twice. And this show just ended and I was like, perfect. So I want to ask
That's
you.
a hard thing to do, too.
it's an
It's
impossible thing.
impossible. Yeah.
The audience has their own expectations about how they want something to end. And as Caroline said earlier today, it's not ending. The show's ending. These stories, in many cases, are just beginning. And certainly in the case of Midge, by the end of the telling of the 5 seasons, is just beginning this extraordinary chapter of success and career, right? We
and
just
see-
saw her
yeah.
for the struggle.
Well, except for that, one of the things that I think is so amazing about this season and so truthful is that you see two women who have struggled. You meet them when they're, really at the entrance to these careers. You watch them struggle. You see by the 5th season that they have succeeded and they end up alone. And I think that's one of the things I really love is that the truth is you can't have it all. And there is a cost to ambition. It is is worth the price to both of these women for that particular kind of satisfaction. But to see Midge, sort of being the most successful comedian in the world with, home and hearth and grandchildren bouncing on her knee and a new relationship, it would have been, that neat sort of television, and they all lived happily ever after.
Yeah.
But when life is complicated, and these characters were always complicated. And along the way, there's always been the question is she a good enough mother? And should she be a mother and also travel as a stand-up? All these things are very, very real, and they have served them up in a really hilarious way. But that's what I really loved about the ending, is that we get the joy of watching that struggle come to this fruition. And then through time we go, and it costs you. It's not for free.
Here's Marin Hinkle and Tony Shalhoub. Well, I wanted to ask you guys, would it jump right in? I think everyone, even in the beginning, fell in love. I mean, how could you not with the Weissman family and with, Abe and Rose? You guys are just so cute together, and you've grown together too over the years.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, how is that process like, seeing Abe and Rose, who went through a lot from losing jobs to Paris to all sorts of things, to kind of come back together and be in such a great place in the final season?
I really feel that Abe and Rose's relationship, their marriage, ever since the dissolution of Midge's marriage, everything that put in motion, that Abe and Rose's marriage has really probably grown more in these few years of our story, more than the first 25 years of their marriage. Because they, like many married couples, they probably just got into a state of, sort of plateau and a kind of a state of complacency and habit. And all of this upheaval, even though it was disruptive and challenging, in a lot of ways, it brought them back to their individual selves, which then eventually came around to almost like a new marriage for both of them. And deeper. Deeper and more profound, ultimately more loving. So in a way, all of the bad things that started in the pilot actually brought them closer somehow.
I completely agree. I hadn't thought of that, and I concur that if we had met them and their daughter had not had this dissolve of her marriage, we might have seen over the course of time that they had a sameness, and instead
sort of
it just like
stasis in a way.
It sort of like shattered something in their beliefs and what they thought were.
They had to really reassess and reestablish their bond, or let it go, and they chose not to let it go. So it has not been a cakewalk. It ultimately sort of paid off.
Well, you both are comedic geniuses, because I'm hysterical when I watch the scenes of the two of you. So I just have to state that right off bat. So congratulations on that just alone, because I know how hard it is. I know how hard it is to be funny. I know how hard it is to hit those notes. You guys make it look so easy. But I want to bring one specific thing that got me super emotional. Throughout the entire show, while the family and the Weissmans might not necessarily be in love with the comedy, and there's so many jokes in that and what she's really doing and kind of what's happening, in the finale was the first time when she's going to be on the Gordon Ford show, that you see support, which was immense. When you guys are running through trying to get a taxi, I mean, I was hysterically laughing, but when you finally get there, I started crying, because I just went, oh my God, they're so proud of her. So what did it feel like for you guys to play that scene? I know that was kind of the last week of filming, so like it was very emotional for everybody, but in that moment, it was like she was accepted by both of you, respected by both of you, and something changed. And it was just so beautiful. How was that scene for you guys in that change?
Yeah, it was interesting because, basically it really had to do with Marin's and my admiration for Rachel. In other words, as characters, we've been somewhat, skeptical and critical and not totally on board with her life choices, her career choices, everything. And yet that was a weird dynamic, because right from the get-go, from the pilot, we were so enamored of Rachel and her skill.
Right.
And so in the finale, we were allowed to kind of release and show this admiration and pride.
It's been there the whole way as humans,
yes,
and not as
we've
characters.
Had to keep a lid on it because of our characters. So in a sense, it really, really was kind of freeing and liberating to just lay back and enjoy her genius.
Because people have been mad at, people get like caught up as if I'm making the choice of my character. They're like, what's wrong with you? You've got to support her. And I'm like, wait, I support Rachel Brosnahan, let me tell you. But you're right. And so in that day, I really did have the floodgate open of like, and not only does Marin, but now Rose gets to support her, and forevermore may she go. And she's probably such a stage mom that like, you can just imagine she'd be at every single performance and like rewatch all the episodes if she's going to do television series and all that. You know, it's
Yeah.
just, she's such a fan of her daughter at this point, I think. And it's just thrilling. As they're running, you know, through the taxis and going, I think Rose is just going to let all hell, you know, loose. And she's just literally going to be like, I don't care if my clothes fall off. I'll be there naked. I'll go see her. Get there or no, through hell or high water, right?
And I think it's, in terms of the writing, I haven't had this conversation with Amy and Dan, but I really think part of what is kind of woven into this final scene is it's a wish fulfillment of us as, you know, because we have parents and we've been in this business. You know, it's that you want your parents to be proud and you want your parents to be admiring your success or, you know, proud of your success. So I think that's kind of stitched into it too. So we got to play that out.
Up next is Michael Zegen. So for this season, I just love Joel. I just love everything about Joel. And I feel like he struggles so much with so many things. You know, this season in particular starts off a little rocky and then kind of comes together for him. I wanted to know for you, how was it working or like, you know, making it make sense in your brain that Joel was always going to be supportive, like once he got on board, was always going to be supportive of Midge and be there to the end to someone that would go out of his way and end up in prison to protect the woman that he loves. I mean, like, it was just so beautiful. And I got like emotional during those scenes when we got to see you older.
Yeah, I mean, that, you know, that completely came out of left field. I had no inclination that Joel was going to end up in prison. I knew we were doing flash forwards, and I was very curious to hear, like, you know, what was going to happen to Joel. I assumed he'd be dead. He did smoke a lot of cigarettes.
Everyone keeps saying this about their own characters. They were like, I assumed I would be dead. I'm like, what?
Is that right?
Yeah,
I haven't
everybody
talked
keeps
about
saying
this
it.
with anybody else, but yeah, I kind of did. I was shocked, you know, to find out that he was in prison, but when I found out why he was in prison, it was wonderful. I dug that. It's just, that's Joel. He's always looking out for Midge and always protecting her and the kids. And so, you know, it was a very redeemable moment for him.
By the way, they aged you. You still looked very good looking. So
Right?
if you,
I know,
oh my
I know.
gosh. Yes, you looked very good looking. So I was like, man, he aged well.
I hope. I had all my hair, and so I was pleased about that. They originally were fitting me for bald caps, and I was like, so then they just decided to color it. I mean, it looked amazing. Mike Marino did the special effects makeup, and he's like a legend. He also does Colin Farrell, the Penguin character, you know, from the last Batman movie. So as well as many other things. So he did his homework. I mean, it was like body scans. It was the whole. They were gonna at one point give me a bodysuit to wear too, but luckily they didn't do that. But I did have to go to New Jersey and get scanned and everything. It would have been cool, but you know, it also would have been very hot. It was deep in the summer, and it was hot as it was. So
It looks so good. And I was curious too. Okay, so this is like a weird side thing that I picked up on, but towards the end of the show, when Midge is kind of walking through her huge apartment and she's kind of alone, right? And she stops at the piano and she moves a photo and fixes it. And it's a picture of the two of you, younger. So I was curious, did they ever consider possibly getting remarried or being together, or like when he comes out of prison being together? Or do you think that? I want them together is basically what I'm saying.
they already got remarried, and that didn't, you know, do you remember they went to Vegas, or he visited her in Vegas, they got remarried? Look, you're actually the second person to mention that. As far as I know, I don't think they got back together, but, you know, I guess it's open for interpretation. I never, you know, asked anybody what's the deal. I just assume. So I'm sorry, I can't answer that question just because I really don't know. But in your fantasy world, maybe, you know, that's okay. That's fine if that's what you want.
I want to ask you too, what was like one of the hardest things for you this season in terms of playing Joel and trying to wrap up his storyline?
I don't know if there was anything really hard. It was, you know, make it sound like it was just more of the same, but it wasn't. It was always just so much fun. It was always just like so joyous coming to set and working with these people that I love. There's nothing that sticks out in my mind as, you know, something hard that I had to do. You know, obviously there were challenges from day one, but I guess really the hardest thing was just putting on that old age makeup. I mean, you know, that was like 4 hours and we had to rehearse it and we did it a few times. We actually reshot it. You know, maybe that was hard, but you know, it wasn't really hard. That's not hard. It was really cool, to be honest. So nothing really sticks out. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. And then I was talking to some of the other cast members and they said some of the last shooting was that scene where she does the monologue and you're there for that portion. Was that like super emotional? And then how did you guys handle all of that? Because that was the last day of filming.
It wasn't just the last day, it was the last week. That scene took a week to shoot. I think it was like a 20-page scene. And because there's all these little scenes that go along with the stand-up, and it's all one set piece really. And yeah, I mean, it was, I keep saying that I guess it was a little bittersweet just because, we were all together and we were all reminiscing and, talking about our experiences on this show. And when the camera was on me and I'm watching her, I really was going through all the emotions and thinking about all the good times we had doing this show. And whether it was the first episode and the pilot getting to know everybody or the Catskills where we just had this 2 weeks of fun. Yeah, I mean, it was just the greatest experience. And I am going to be sorry to see it go, but at least I know that, we all put our heart and souls into this and did the best we could do. And I think the work speaks for itself.
Yeah, in that scene, when they show you, I love when Joel makes a face like, what's going on? Because she's on the bench. And then it's something about your relationship with her. It's something about Joel and Midge that just pushes each other to be better. And she takes that leap and grabs that microphone. And in that moment, if you watch the show then backwards, you realize that moment was the moment that really made her famous. So all the future stuff we see was due to her grabbing that mic. And she does that after looking at you.
I never thought about that, but that's good to know when I eventually watch it. But, the whole thing is because of Joel. I mean, him leaving her in the very first episode is really the inciting incident for everybody. I mean, everybody kind of, it's this domino effect where everybody sort of gives up their old life and becomes something new. And, whether it's a profession or a new profession or what. So, yeah, I mean, he's the catalyst. I mean, Joel, he wasn't too popular in that first season, but I mean, people have to realize like he's the reason why she became who she became.
Now that obviously the show is done, it's coming out to the world soon, it's kind of given out to everybody. What are you most looking forward to for people seeing? I mean, literally the last episode, I was crying and laughing at the same time, which was making a really weird sound. And Joel is so funny too, by the way. Like I love all this, and you're so good at being fast and doing those scripts because I know Amy's scripts are fast and full of stuff. You're so good at it. But I mean, I was laughing and crying. It ended and I just went, that was perfect. So what are you hoping people kind of get from it now that it's kind of out of your hands and it's going to be in the world soon?
I hope they have the same reaction that you had. I hope they say it's perfect. I haven't seen it yet. I want to watch it. We're doing more press. We're going to France and there's going to be a premiere there. So I want to watch the first episode on the big screen. They send me screeners, on my computer. I don't want to watch it on my computer. I want to watch it the way it's supposed to be watched. So yeah, so I'm holding off. I'm very excited to hear more opinions like yours. And I'm sure there are people who are going to feel the opposite too, obviously. I mean, everybody has an opinion. But I mean, I love the way it ended. And it also just doesn't feel like the end. I'm not saying we're going to come back and reboot it or anything like that, but perhaps, I mean, that just seems to be what people are doing these days. So maybe 10 years from now, we'll have Maisel set in the 70s or something. Like I would be the first to sign up for that.
And finally, here's Luke Kirby. So I want to talk about Lenny Bruce, obviously, and your character. I love how you were able to kind of play him in your own way, but in a way that really represented him. And I know you did a lot of research and everyone has always told me you're like the expert, the go-to, the one for Lenny Bruce. So I wanted to know if there was anything that you wish that you could have done, or maybe one of his skits or like one of his shows that you weren't able to do in the 5 seasons.
I spent a lot of time listening to a lot of things that, we never got to put on screen. There are some that are very specific to times when Lenny Bruce was arrested or there was some kind of controversy around it. I mean, there's one in London that I would have liked to have explored. There's a performance that he did in Chicago that I just think is like, oh, it's just so incredible. I could tell you all about it, but it would take hours and you would be asleep. But there's one in Australia that is, anyways, they just, they go on. And then there's stuff from Lenny's own life that is just, fascinating. If you've read his book or you've read his Honey Bruce's book, or if you've read any other books in general, I encourage. Yeah, but no. So the answer, the long, stupid answer is yes. There's a lot. But I have to say, I'm happy with what we got to do.
Yeah, and I'm really happy too because I know a lot of people talked about the fight that they had last season between him and Midge, and trying to say like, listen, you have to work for it and don't do necessarily what I'm doing, and this is how you're going to be a huge star and kind of move forward. And a lot of people stuck on that. For this season, for me, obviously, the scenes where they show the two of you, and there's so much of him saying, there was one scene where you meet with Susie and you say something like, give it to someone who's worth it. And that was such a Lenny Bruce thing where I think he always felt very self-deprecating. I've done a lot of research on him. I love him. So I feel like that's something that he would say to like that he wasn't worth it, but to give it to someone else that would and would benefit from it. And for you, learning what they were going to show in the last episode, and I was so glad that they didn't show him, passing and all of that kind of stuff. What did that mean to you too? Those decisions, how they were made?
I mean, I always felt like from the outset of, when I started getting invited back to the show, I always felt like they were handling it so delicately and succinctly, and that their concern was true and correct of like not overwhelming too much Lenniness into the show. Also not having to, be burdened with the responsibility of doing a biopic and adhering to a chronology, and also the confusion that would have come with playing a fiction and a historic archive, side by side. I felt like Amy and Dan made really specific and, to my mind, conscientious and special decisions about what to do. So I kind of, I just have always just followed their lead with this.
So how is that for you, like now looking back, that you're the character pretty much from the beginning that was there for her, that challenged her, that was willing to fight with her because you didn't have any emotional or, connection. You had all of that freedom. And then you're the one that kind of like pushes her even further and then bows out for her to take that stage.
Well, I'm happy people finally paid attention to me.
We always pay attention to you. You're so good on the show.
Good. No, that's nice. I mean, I'm glad it worked out that way. I don't know, there's certainly there was never any design with this job. We really I just would follow it from episode to episode. And when they would call me in, the only thing I hoped for was that they would give me enough time to learn all the stuff I needed to learn before I had to show up on set. At the beginning, it felt like I just had to kind of take a leap of faith with the character and with Amy and Dan, and I just followed that through right to the bitter end. And it's been lovely to do it that way.
And how are you with the comedy? Because I mean, comedy is a whole other beast. You're on a TV show. You have to balance all of these things, but your skits are freaking hilarious. I mean, obviously like Lenny's skits were hilarious, but I mean, it's hard to do stand-up comedy as a normal person, let alone an actor on a show and doing that. So how is that for you? And like in this last season, there's a couple of hard times too with his sets, but I think overall over the past 7 years, which are 5 seasons, you did a ton of stand-up. So how is that for you as a challenge for an actor?
I mean, really fun, really fun. Lenny Bruce had a fast brain, and the way it connected to his mouth was impressive. I don't feel like I have that access. And so I had to take many naps when I was sort of, learning his bits, because I found it to be tiring, but it was really fun to do. And, I got to do them in really exciting spaces. I mean, I got to perform in the Village Vanguard, obviously Carnegie Hall. Like, we went to real places, and it felt, for brief but very special moments, that it was really happening.
I wanted to ask you, if Lenny was around and he was watching the show and you got a chance to talk with him, which I know you would ask probably a million questions because I know you and I've heard so much research over the years, but is there one particular thing you would want to ask for you as an actor? Is there something that you would have want to be like, did you like this? Or is there something that I could have tweaked here? Or do you think he would have just he might have just made a bit of it? I don't know.
I'd say, do you want to go get breakfast? And then maybe, then I would start. I don't know. I would kind of have to suss it out. I hope we did okay. I think
you did more than okay. I think he'd be very happy with it. And I did notice his granddaughter in it, and I think got the stamp of approval overall. So you did such a fantastic job. But I wanted to know, what was like one thing that it was the funnest thing that you got to do over the 5 seasons? And then what are you looking forward to now that it's going to be in the hands of fans? And it's no longer kind of yours. It's like a new beast. What are you hoping that they watch and like take away from it?
I hope people, what I'm taking away from it is all of it. It's been a great gift. It's been great to, obviously, to have this role, to feel like this role is resonating, to be in the presence of Rachel has been kind of all the anchor that I needed in all of those scenes. To work in, the city I live in, which is not always the case, has been just a charm. And to explore the city in the way that we did on the show has felt very, very lucky. I'm sure that this will vary. I know that, what Lenny said to Midge at the end of last season, really resonated with me in terms of, what I oftentimes hope for with other, people who need to have, their bell rung. In terms of what people take away from the show, explore the idea of what it is to dream and to defer or not to defer.
Hope you guys enjoyed listening to the cast talk about what it was like filming its 5th and final season and break down all of the episodes, including the final few moments of the final episode. As a reminder, season 5 premiered back on Friday, April 14th, with 3 episodes on Prime Video, and a new episode aired weekly until the series finale on Friday, May 26th. Now that the finale has aired, we obviously have put out this podcast, so I hope you guys enjoyed listening to the cast reminisce and talk about the final season and break down, like I said, those last final few moments. Hope you guys enjoyed it as much as we did. And in order to end this podcast, I will end with Susie's famous line, tits up. So hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you're updated on all of our latest podcasts, and head over to our YouTube channel, hit subscribe so you're updated on all of our video content.